going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Leo's Nerd Talk, and today we're going to be talking about the Thunderbolts. So let's get into that. Hi, my name is Leo, and as I talk about thing, movie, TV show, video game related, or just anything nerdy, you have come to the right place. And like I said, today we're talking about the Thunderbolts, the new Avengers, Thunderbolts, new Avengers. Yeah, it's all the same thing. So the Thunderbolts, or as more recently is called the New Avengers, as the MCU has now released that is the new title for this movie, basically takes a bunch of ragtag superheroes or anti-heroes, whatever you want to call them, bring them together through kind of some more unfortunate circumstances and put them against a very, very OP villain. Now, probably as many people going to this movie probably didn't expect too much out of this film, especially because the MCU has not had the greatest track record over the past couple of years. But this one has definitely seemed to be a little bit more fun, and I definitely wanted to give it a shot, and I did a couple of days ago, and it turned out to be a lot better than what I expected. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get straight into my pros. And start with the pros. I do like this kind of more small scale story that we have here, even though you have a kind of out of this world villain towards the end. Just the way these characters kind of get brought together, where you have this person that is running this whole campaign and having this experimental labs and stuff trying to enhance humans, and that's kind of getting shut down. On top of her, she sends out most of the people from the Thunderbolts before they become the Thunderbolts to basically assassinate each other, and they end up finding out that they got double crossed and team up together to try to take her down. And I like that. I like that this is such a small story. It doesn't go you know across universes, interstellar, across different planets, none of that. This is all within one city, a very small ragtag group that doesn't have these incredible, crazy, supernatural like powers. They're all essentially just extremely strong, gifted, and skilled people when it comes to fighting, shooting, and all these different type of things. So that ends up being a very enjoyable time because you have characters that seemingly shouldn't work together, but end up being like such a very entertaining, fun time, especially with like David Harbour's character as the Red Guardian. His kind of very fun comedic relief moments throughout the entire movie ends up making it for a movie where you're constantly laughing. And then you have our villain that at first you don't realize who it is. I mean, it's pretty obvious who it's going to be, but you have the introduction of Bob, who ends up being Sentry later on within the movie, and him kind of being a very disoriented person and having a very monotone way to speak and interact with other people. It ends up for being very, very funny moments on the movie as well. And then you have all these returning characters like Bucky, who comes in hot. It's one of the most epic, awesome moments within the movie when Bucky comes in riding that motorcycle, taking down all these vehicles. Like he literally shows up like the fucking Terminator, and it ends up being just one of the more epic parts of the movie. And you have everybody in between. You have Yelena, who Florence Pugh. I mean, there's not much more I can say about that, but you have her character that has a very fun, great emotional arc as well, especially with her relationship with her dad as the Red Guardian. And you just have a great time with these characters where you're constantly wanting yourself to be around them because, like I said, although they all seem like they shouldn't work with each other, it ends up being for a very, very fun time. And I kind of mentioned him a little bit already, but we have the character of Bob, who at first you don't really know who he is. He kind of shows up out of nowhere as someone who seemingly was one of the patients that was being used in this lab to try to enhance their abilities through some scientific things or whatever the case may be. And he ends up being someone that is actually successful when it comes to these enhancements and becomes Sentry, who, me personally, I don't know much about Sentry when it comes into the comic books. I don't know his backstory. I'm assuming this is basically his backstory if it's accurate to the comic books. I don't know what his role is when it comes to the bigger picture within the MCU. Um, so it becomes something that is very fresh, but I do enjoy his character. He's essentially a very overpowered, godlike type of character, and ends up being one of the more intimidating villains that we've seen in a long time. And it becomes a movie where you feel kind of hopeless because you have this group, the Thunderbolts, where none of them have an ability to really fight against Sentry. Sentry is pretty much all powerful at this point, and it ends up being very, very satisfying when we follow the journey of our characters trying to figure out how to stop Sentry, especially when it becomes this essentially void, and it's a very very satisfying ride that you go through, where the skills that these people have in the Thunderbolts, that they're super strong, have really great reflexes, great shooting, great acrobatics, all that stuff literally means nothing when it comes to defeating Sentry, and there's much more of an emotional stake that they have to go through just to get past this villain. And I find that to be very, very good. A very great way to show these characters and showcase their abilities and do something a little bit different that we may have not seen before within the MCU. So I definitely very much enjoy Sentry as a villain and how he was able to be defeated and how these characters handled this mission that they had at hand. And a lot of people are going to ask, because we've seen a bunch of headlines already, is this the return of the MCU? And for partially, I believe it kind of is. You have a movie that definitely felt more reminiscence of earlier phases within the MCU. It felt a lot more fun, but had a great story. It had great characters, and you even had different scenes like the end credit scenes that set up things that feel more important. Like these movies do feel more important, even though this is such a small story. The end goal by the end of it, once you see the end credit scenes and see where this might lead, it feels much more heavy. It feels like we're leading to a big epic, which we should be when next year when it comes to Doomsday. And that's what I enjoyed about this movie. I think the directing, the pacing, the style, the comedy of it, and also the epicness of the movie, it all added up to the same flavor that we've gotten from previous MCU movies. That I think is a great, great refresher back into the MCU and starting to see a little bit of the light of where we can be heading towards next, and hopefully going back to the glory days of like Infinity War and Endgame when it comes to the big epic Avenger movies again. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into my cons. And I don't have many here because I did very much enjoy this movie. Um, One con, this is not really a con of the movie. It's kind of more like me when I was watching the movie, what I was thinking. And a couple of my buddies thought the same thing is, where the fuck is Spider-Man? Seemingly, he should be in New York while this is happening, and he should still be Spider-Man at this point, and he should. I mean, the fucking the there's people literally being incinerated through this void, and seemingly Spider-Man is nowhere to be found. And not necessarily that's a bad thing. It's just something that went into my head. He's supposed to be the protector of New York, and while this is probably the biggest event that's happened in New York in a little bit, you would think he'd be there. And I understand it could be for different circumstances, different reasons, or whatever the case may be. But it's just something that I thought of, like that went into my head that I thought was kind of funny when while watching it. Is where the hell is Spider Man? And secondly, there's some characters that I felt weren't utilized as good, like someone like Ghost. I don't think her character was used as well as the other ones in this kind of ragtag group. So certain characters didn't felt like they weren't utilized as well, which is totally fine because you have some of the other ones that are kind of more of the bigger names and felt like more weight was on their shoulder when it came to this movie. But it would have been nice to see some of these other kind of characters that we've got here to feel like they were a little bit more important into the whole central plot. I feel like it focused a lot more on Yelena's story, and her kind of arc with her dad and her trying to find her place and feel like she's actually a superhero and not just someone random that doesn't necessarily belong and wants to actually be someone that's out in the face and not in the shadows anymore, and be more recognized for the good that she does. So I feel like the story definitely focuses a lot more on Elena's character than anyone else's, but it would have been nice to kind of see more of these other side characters be utilized better, in my opinion. But that's going to be it for this one, guys. Let me know what you guys thought about the Thunderbolts or the new Avengers, whatever name you decide to pick on this one. I definitely had a great time with this movie. But again, if you guys like talking about the movie, TV show, or video game related, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you.